This is the Elon Musk PayPal chapter that started in a bar. Fanny and Alexander, Palo Alto. A small group of his own employees met to plan one thing: removing him. They chose the exact night he boarded his honeymoon flight to Sydney, then called the board. He landed, he was gone, and the PayPal Mafia story began without him. He walked away with $180 million and proved every one of them wrong. This video covers one of the most brutal corporate coups in Silicon Valley history. By the end, you'll understand why two companies locked in a war decided to merge, and what that merge cost him. You'll see exactly how a group of his own engineers orchestrated his removal. The night of September 2000, the bar, the letters, the board call. And you'll see what he did next, why the man who got fired stayed invested, kept quiet, and walked out with $180 million when eBay paid $1.5 billion for PayPal in July 2002. This isn't a story about losing. This is a story about how a certain kind of man responds when the floor drops out. Before any of this happened, he needed a company. So in the final months of 1999, X.com went live, and within weeks, 200,000 people had signed up. He was giving people $20 just to open an account, $10 more for every friend they brought. The idea was simple: move money the way you move an email. No bank delays, no overdraft fees, no waiting. Down the street, two engineers had a competing idea. Max Levchin and Peter Thiel were building something they called PayPal. The two products were on a collision course. They burned tens of millions trying to outspend each other. Hackers hit both platforms daily. By March 2000, both sides were exhausted, so they stopped fighting. X.com and Confinity agreed to merge, and X.com led the terms. The merged company raised $100 million from Deutsche Bank and Goldman Sachs within weeks. They had over 1 million customers. It looked like they were going to win. But the moment the two teams moved into the same office, the war didn't end. It just moved inside. The engineers couldn't agree on anything. The biggest fight was about software. Linux versus Microsoft. It sounds technical. To them, it was a religious war. Thiel resigned. Levchin threatened to walk out, and the website crashed every single week. He was left running a company that was bleeding money, losing trust, and quietly fracturing. It was September 2000. He and his wife had been married for 9 months, and they still hadn't had a honeymoon. So they planned one, combined with a fundraising trip to Sydney for the Olympics. What he didn't know, while he was packing for Sydney, a small group of his own engineers had already chosen their night. They met at a bar in Palo Alto called Fanny and Alexander, and they made a decision. He had to go. The man they wanted to replace him, Peter Thiel, the man who had already quit 2 months earlier over the software war. Instead of confronting him directly, they went behind his back. They waited for the specific night he boarded his flight to Sydney. Then they moved. As he walked down that jetway, executives at the company were handing letters of no confidence to the board. One of the people who'd been loyal to him sensed something was wrong. He went into the office at 10:30 that night, and when he tried to reach him, the answer was, I tried to call Elon, but he's on a plane. By the time that plane landed, it was done. Peter Thiel was the new CEO. He didn't sleep. He boarded the next available flight back to Palo Alto. His wife would later say it was shocking, but she also said, and this matters, that she thought he handled it pretty well. The man who just lost his own company was already deciding how to respond. He got back to Palo Alto. He sat down with the board, with Moritz, with Thiel, with Levchin. He pushed back. He argued that there were things that still needed to happen, things only he could drive. But it was already decided. The board had moved, and at some point, he heard them out, and he made a choice. He later described it this way. It wasn't that he desperately needed to be CEO. It was more that he believed there were critical decisions ahead, and he wasn't sure anyone else would make them. Then he spoke to Max and Peter, and they convinced him they would, so he stepped back. His words, "It's not the end of the world."
Not everyone accepted it. One engineer who'd been with him from the beginning said he was floored, angry.
Another early engineer called it backhanded and cowardly, said he would have been more behind it if Elon had at least been in the room. But he didn't rage, he didn't sue, he didn't leak to the press. He accepted the role of advisor, and he kept buying shares.
By June 2001, his name was erased from the product entirely. Thiel renamed X.com, the company he had built, PayPal. And he kept buying. While the dot-com bubble burst around him, while friends were cashing out and running, he increased his stake. One of the investors said what everyone around Musk expected and didn't get. Quote, "You would expect someone in his position to be bitter and vindictive, but he wasn't. He was a prince." The man who got fired from his own company became its largest shareholder. By 2001, the dot-com world was collapsing. Companies were selling for pennies. Investors were desperate to get out of anything tech-related. Executives from eBay started approaching PayPal about an acquisition. The room wanted to sell, fast. He said no. He and one of the major investors urged the board to reject offer after offer. PayPal was doing $240 million in revenue per year. It could survive. It could go public. They held. While everyone else folded, they held. In July 2002, eBay came back. This time, the number was $1.5 billion. They took it. His cut, $250 million gross. After taxes, $180 million. The man who was removed from his own company on his honeymoon flight walked out with $180 million. The people who voted him out made money too, but here's what the math said. The man who got fired stayed quiet, kept buying, and refused to sell early. He got paid more than almost anyone else in the room. Fired on a honeymoon flight, $180 million on the landing. They fired him on his honeymoon. He stayed invested, he stayed quiet, and he got paid. Every person who signed that letter made money too, but the man who lost the title kept the most shares and walked out with the most. Fired on a honeymoon flight, $18 million on the landing. Turns out being fired was the best thing that ever happened to him. He had $180 million, and no company. What would you have done with it? Next chapter. The same week eBay closed the PayPal deal, he was already building something. Subscribe so you don't miss where $180 million went next. If this was worth your time, like and subscribe. Next chapter's harder.